This is Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast, episode number 217. Today we talk about being in the flow, what it is, what it's like, how you can leverage it, and why it's so important to maximize your impact. Keep flowing. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast. This is the only podcast that shows you how to leverage polarity intelligence, an essential competency for healthcare leaders, and the missing logic in healthcare, so you can create healthy, healing organizations and become a thriving, resilient, and unstoppable healthcare leader.
We are your hosts, Tracy Christopherson and Michelle Trosett. We've been best friends and colleagues for over 30 years. And during that time, we coached healthcare leaders across North America around how to create healthy, healing organizations.
Today, we coach healthcare leaders and leadership teams to live thriving, resilient, and balanced lives, combat burnout, and create the best places to give and receive care.
This podcast is for the unsung hero of healthcare, the healthcare leader. We want you to know we see you and we'll be here for you each week. In this podcast, we're going to challenge healthcare's industry norms, flip limiting beliefs, and share proven strategies so you can be your best self at work and at home, live and lead intentionally, and experience well-being and joy.
We are glad you are here and look forward to sharing the journey with you. If you aren't totally convinced this podcast is for you, just listen to a few episodes and convince yourself. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast. I am your co-host, Michelle Trosett.
And I'm Tracy Christopherson.
And together, we're missing and logic.
Oh, okay. Who's missing and who's the logic?
Let's flip a quarter and see who is it one today. Who's what today?
Who's what today? Yeah.
Oh, because you know why? It's all about the flow, right,
Yes,
Tracy?
flow.
It's all about the
Be
flow.
in the flow.
Yeah.
As much as possible.
And that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about being in the flow state. And we are coming to you from our Missing Logic podcast studio. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you'll notice that Tracy and I have our bright pink matching coats on.
Our signature coats.
And we want you to know, in all transparency, we bought these coats independent from each other.
Yeah.
Neither one of us knew we were buying a bright pink coat, and one day we just both showed up with them on.
Yeah. Well, and as Kevin would call us, the fuchettes.
Oh, yes.
Kevin Brown calls us the fuchettes.
And so we're kind of have had a lot of experiences of kind of being in the flow when we got our pink coats on.
Yes, we do. Yeah. You never know what's going to happen. We do have clothes on under here, I just want to say. We're not just in our little pink trench coats.
And we do have
no
to say,
surprises, folks. No surprises.
and we do have to say that we are in our studio and it's freezing today, so we're actually happy to wear coats while recording this session.
That's true. That's true.
Anyway, it's just great when you're in the flow, when you're stretched and good things happen and you have, those feelings of accomplishment. You know you're gaining traction on what your goals are, and it's good to have those little validations that things are flowing.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to talk about exactly what that is and why you'd want to feel it.
Yes.
Why is that important? What's good about that experience?
And how do I get there? How do I get in that
How do
state?
I get more of it? It's like crack. The good kind.
Now, don't be starting any rumors about us.
No. It's just addictive, right? It's addictive.
It is.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the flow state. And I think, just doing a little research on this really helped me even get clearer on what the flow state is. You hear about it. But if you haven't really researched it or done a lot of learning around it, you could maybe have a misconception of what it is. And so just so we're all on the same page, we're going to talk about what the flow state is. And really it was popularized by positive psychologists. Now, here I go. I'm going to say this name probably multiple times, and I'm hoping I'm going to get it right. But it's Mihai Csikszentmihalyi was the and Jean Nakamura are the individuals that really popularized this concept of the flow state. And the flow state is where under the right conditions, right, you're deeply immersed in whatever you're doing. You're fully focused to the point of extreme clarity and creativity. And there's like this fluidity between your mind and your body. It's like this total alignment, being one with the task at hand, kind of that single mindedness, that sense of just kind of being in the zone, right? And that's kind of what it really feels like. It kind of looks like. It doesn't, and this was new to me. So I think this is a really important point about the flow state is that it doesn't occur during our easiest and most relaxed moments. It's not about being at ease and relaxed. It's really about the right tension between your skill level and the challenge that you are up against. So it is really about it, getting into that state where there's the right tension between the two. And then it can leave you with this feeling of being motivated, fulfilled. You can even experience extreme joy, even ecstasy, like even feeling ecstatic, like it's so motivating and inspiring, when you get into this state. So that's a little bit about what it is.
Sounds awesome.
I know, who wouldn't want that? Like, too bad. Well, of course, if you had it all the time, you wouldn't know what it was.
That's right, exactly.
Because you have to have contradiction, right? You have to have the
contrast.
contrary.
The contrast. And we know there's a lot of contrast with what Tracy described and where a lot of healthcare leaders are today. Because, if you're like many of the healthcare leaders that we talk to, we know you're a high achiever. You're very purpose-driven and dedicated to your profession, your team, and your organization. And at the same time, you are exhausted. And you're feeling like you're in this battle alone and just trying to get through each day. So in other words, you're as far away from the flow state as you can get right now. And you feel it.
Yeah. Yeah,
you feel it.
You are feeling it. That's for sure. Now, and we get it, right? These have been very, very uncertain times. There are many resource constraints that are challenging you. And every time you think you're getting your head above water, something comes along to shove you 3 feet further. That's what I was trying to say. I can get his name, but I can't talk, right? 3 feet further down under the current, right?
That's right.
Yeah, we get it.
We do. But there's hope.
Yes.
There's hope because based on Csikszentmihalyi, the research that he and his colleague did, we do know that those that experienced the flow state were high performers in their careers that were challenged and that are challenging and rewarding. So just like you're a high achiever as a healthcare leader listening to us, these are the type of people that they studied and the benefits of getting yourself in a flow state. So some of the benefits are that you are focused and you're focused in a way that you're not distracted by other things so that you can be very productive and you can put out high quality work. And you bring great intention to that focus in your work. Also clarity. So you know intuitively what to do and that you don't have limited thinking to hinder your action. You don't let things get in the way. You just stay focused. And then also you're bringing positive feelings. You're experiencing positive feelings because you're connected to what you love or what you're passionate about. And that's really important that there's an alignment there. And then that gives you such a feeling of fulfillment and that sense of well-being when you're in the flow state. So those are some of the positive benefits.
Yeah. Now, there were some universal factors of flow that Csikszentmihalyi identified in his studies from like the 1990s to 2002. And I'm just going to run through those. So these are the universal factors of flow. That there's this challenge and skill balance. So the level of challenge equals the skill that you have. I think that's just key.
Yeah.
It's just really key, right? But this isn't about an extreme challenge that you don't have any skill in. You're not going to get to flow with that. So you're looking to leverage the skills that you have and stretching yourself, right? And taking on bigger challenges is where you will start to experience this flow state. There's this action awareness merging. So it really is the mind and body kind of knowing what to do, as Michelle said, right? It just becomes like a natural movement, that's probably where the flow piece comes from, right? You have clear goals. You know exactly what you were setting out to achieve when you're in this state. You have kind of unambiguous feedback. So you have this ongoing feedback to know what your progress is and where you need to step back or move forward or course correct, right? So you have that ongoing unambiguous feedback to let you know how things are progressing. The concentration on the task at hand is singular. Like you are like totally focused on that one activity, that one task. There's nothing distracting you. You have this sense of control, which I think is really, really awesome too, right? It's not being controlling, it's being in control, right? That sense of control of what's happening, what you're creating, what's emerging. And you have this loss of self consciousness. So you don't have these worries or doubts. I like to think about you don't have that chatter in your head going off, right? You're not listening to your subconscious judge what you're doing, tell you you're not good enough, whatever it is. You don't have that chatter. You're just singularly focused on the task and consciously focused on what you're doing without any worries or awareness of that subconscious. And the time just transforms. You lose track of the time.
Yeah.
The time transforms. Like you look up and you're like, I can't believe the day's almost gone, right? Or I can't believe that how fast that last hour went. And you also experience this autotelic experience, which is really the feeling of it, right? The emotion of it, that pleasant, enjoyable, kind of intrinsically motivating feeling that you get when you're in this state. And I think the question to ask yourself, is if you're not spending time in a flow state, if you're not experiencing this, it's time to evaluate why. Where's the disconnect? Is there a disconnect between the challenges that you are facing or that you're putting yourself in? We put ourselves in situations that challenge us sometimes, right? To grow and evolve. That's why we're here. Or is it the skill level that you got? Like, why don't you have that right balance, right? Where are you lacking in one or the other of those? And what can you do to help yourself experience more of it?
So we've been asking ourselves that question.
Yeah.
Because we love being in the flow state. And we thought we'd share some just different recommendations that you might want to think about to create opportunities in your own life to be in the flow state as frequently as possible. So one is to evaluate the alignment of your purpose and the strengths in your role. And so how lined up are these things with, why you're here? And we talk a lot in our work with you have to be clear on your purpose. And that's something that you do have to evaluate over time. And then that alignment to your strengths and what you do every day in your role. The second thing is to identify times for peak productivity or creativity. And this is something that's really important that Tracy and I apply all the time. In fact, we know if we send each other work, I'll look at this in the morning when I'm fresh.
Well, you got to know.
Because you got to know when when's going to be what's your peak time that you're going to be able to work on something especially challenging. So identify what those times are for you. And, mine used to be night. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, and especially if you want to get in a flow state.
Yeah.
You really it's gotta be the optimal. It's the environment. It's the optimal time, space. Yeah, that's right.
Yep. And so I'm just telling you,
Mm-hmm.
mine used to be at night and I could get so much done and it could go by so fast. And now, Well, now I'm a little older. So now my mornings, I've like totally flipped that. The third thing is to look at calendar blocks and where can you block time on your calendar so you are uninterrupted and work on your certain things. And then fourth is focus on the one task at a time and turn off distractions, just stay focused on that task. Another one is clearly defined goals. So are they clearly defined so that you can have that focused? And then 6 is to create immediate feedback loops. So that you can like stay in the flow, but you're getting feedback either from yourself or maybe it's sharing it with someone else to kind of keep you moving forward and getting that validation and moving forward. And then 7 is to ritualize your process in your actions so that you can take that will and create an environment conducive to a state of flow. So, and I know that when we were working on our book, Polarity Intelligence, the Missing Logic in Leadership, which will be coming out in the future, I found my flow state at the library and going to the library and staying focused. And that kind of became my environment. And it kept me there over time on many weekends working on it. But that was when I was in a flow state working on the book. And then lastly is practice meditation. And this is to really familiarize yourself with your mind and body connection, and that helps put you in the flow state as well.
Yeah, well, and I think, there's two things here. Like you can find yourself in the flow state.
And you can create
Like
it.
you can be working on something and all of a sudden just find yourself in that state, or you can set it up to
Yes.
happen, right?
Yep.
So I think, and I think practicing, because you might be like, I don't know if I've ever experienced a flow state. And I think that's where this meditation really helps, right? Because it quiets you and you're intentional around that, So I thought that was really an interesting recommendation as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's what happens if you are in a lower skill level or a lower challenge state. There's actually a flow state chart that was created, and it really kind of outlines like it's on the vertical and the horizontal axis, right? When you have low skill and low challenge, here's some of the things too that you can experience, like apathy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or as maybe the challenge increases, but the skill remains low, it might be worry. And then when you get all the way to the top, it can be anxiety because you got this major challenge and no skill,
Yep.
right? The leveraging between the two is off, right? Your balance between the two is off. And if you have some skill, but the challenge is not significant, then you can really get bored. So there are some consequences to not having that balance that can impede your ability to get into the flow state. And if you're not experiencing that, then, the other thing is to ask yourself how much longer you're going to tolerate that. Because when we're working, if we want to be, right, highly productive and have these incredible careers, it seems like this is essential to that, right? To have this right balance between your skill and your challenges. And many of you are new leaders, right? Many of you are evolving leaders trying to move up the ladder, trying to take on more and more. So even be thinking about this, right? If you're taking on things that don't contribute to you experiencing the flow state, to be asking yourself, why is that, right? Because sometimes we say yes to a lot of things, but it's not really the things that we want to do or the things that we have the skill for, or it's not challenging enough, or it's too challenging based on the skill that we have. So it's just that right combination. And I think this just gives us awareness to think about that, right? And to be considering it, right? And then just, you don't want to continue to have that chatter in your head and like feel inhibited or experience fatigue, which can come as a downside of not having this opportunity to be in a flow state. So what's it costing you, or what's it costing those around you if you're not putting yourself in this, having this opportunity, or giving yourself the opportunity to experience the flow state? So I think it's just really, when you think about it, just imagine, just imagine you sit down to work on a task and you're in an environment where it's very quiet, you're uninterrupted, and you've got just the right tension between your skill and this challenge that you're facing. And you have a very clear goal that you're going to achieve by completing this specific task, and your focus is complete and singular. There's no inner chatter, there's nothing to distract you. You're just singularly focused. You're making great progress. You're feeling the creative juices flowing. And you really start to have that sense of excitement and energy and inspiration, and it just builds and builds and builds. And you're just intuitively knowing what the next step is, where you need to take it next, how you need to move forward, right? And you've kind of got that loss of a sense of self, that sense of consciousness. There's no worry, there's no doubt. You just know you're headed in the right direction, and you're getting the feedback to know exactly what you need to do next, and it just feels like Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever your joy, right? Like that time where it's just like, oh, it just feels magical and exciting, and you just, you've made it. Like you got there, and you're like, oh my gosh, all this just happened in this little tiny period of time.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. That's what it can feel like.
And we know that, many of you have experienced this before, but maybe have not put it in the context of being in a flow state, which is why we really enjoyed doing this episode and learning more about it ourselves.
Mhm.
It's not like we never experienced it, but it does exist. And what can we learn more about it so we can create more and more opportunities to be in the
Mhm.
flow state more often? Because
Mhm.
I'd much rather be in a flow state than in a non-flow state,
Well,
personally.
yeah, and again, it's choices,
Yeah.
right? It's choices and alignment, and I just keep going back to the skill
Yep.
and the challenge. And sometimes we walk away from challenges because we don't think we have the skill, but we may have the skill, right? So it's just kind of knowing yourself, knowing what the right, that right tension, that right combination, and not being afraid of the challenge.
Yeah.
Now, so we pass up the challenge, even though we have the skill, we think, oh, I can't do that, right? But
Yeah.
if you give yourself that opportunity, you could find yourself in the flow state,
Yeah.
right?
And you never know when those opportunities might just suddenly present themselves. So Tracy and I, we like being in the flow when we speak, or we are in the flow when we speak. So it's no secret that we love speaking in front of live audiences, and actually even doing this on YouTube and being with people. And we recently were keynote speakers at a healthcare organization in California, and we had a 3-hour time slot, which is, pretty average for us. And we were planning what we were going to do. We were all excited. And then we found out that because they wanted more people to hear us than what they had the capacity in this room to fill, they wanted us to do 3 45-minute sessions in this 3-hour time period. And it was like, oh, okay. This is going to stretch us because we have a lot to say about polarity intelligence and being balanced. But we looked at how we could frame it up, how we could do it in a 45-minute period, and we definitely got into our flow state. We had a wonderful experience.
Yeah. I mean,
It was great.
once we get started, it just flows. It just happens, right?
Yeah.
You lose track of, well, you have to monitor the time only because you only got 45
5
minutes. But it's not because you're marking the time. You're in the flow as we go through it. And it just because it's aligned with our skill, it's challenging enough, right? You're always kind of getting that feedback from the audience, and if they're engaging with you, if they like what you're saying, if they're hearing you, if they're responding well to it, right? So you've got that constant feedback loop, and we're leveraging the tension between our skill and the challenge to communicate what we know so well to people who don't know anything about it, and to align it to what they are experiencing in their real worlds, right? No matter what that is. And so it lights us up, and we get in the flow and have a great time, and can't believe the time's up when it is.
Yeah.
That's how it works. And when we put our pink coats on.
And yeah, they loved our pink coats. Happens every time.
Yeah. Well, and I think, again, it's stepping into it, creating the opportunity for it. And there's just magic that occurs when we have our coats on. I can't tell you how that happens, but it just does. We're in the flow no matter where we're at, in the airport, airplanes, restaurants. People like us. They like our flow. They like our energy, right? Because we're in the flow. We're in the flow.
The Fuchettes.
Yes, the Fuchettes.
So thank you all so much for being with us on another episode of Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. We hope we stimulated some thinking for you. Am I in the flow state? When was the last time I was in the flow state? Maybe you're in a flow state right now. Hallelujah. And we just really appreciate you listening to us. And we would love it if you would leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. That means the world to us. And also to share our podcast with your colleagues, your friends. If this episode really resonated with you and you think I want to share it with someone else, please do. That really helps us out so much, and it'll help get more people in the flow state. So with that, we will close this session, and we ask that you stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you the next time on Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast, now a top-rated podcast for healthcare leaders. Please share this podcast with other healthcare leaders and anyone else you think would benefit. We are certain that if you found value in it, they will too. If you haven't already done so, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any episodes. And also, it would mean the world to us if you took a quick moment to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast player. It helps to get the word out about our podcast and incredible guests. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to watch our podcasts. You can also follow us on our Missing Logic social media channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Until next time.